Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. So May, it's nearly gone. Hasn't the month flown by? Today we're going to take a look at the pens and the inks that I've been using this month. Remember this month it was the blues, so all the inks I've used have been blue inks. What we're going to do is I'm going to quickly take you through each of the pens. I'm going to show them from my least favourite through to my most favourite of the month. After we've done that, I'll go through the inks as well, but we won't look at the detail of those because we'd have looked at them when we look at the pens. I'll just give you the ranking from my least favourite to my favourite again. So join me now down on the mat. Let's take a look at these pens and these inks. So here we are down on the mat. It's time to take a look at the pens, and we're going to start with the pen that came in at position number 6, and it's this one. This is the HongDian, the Light of Hope. Now, I love the colour of this pen. It looks really nice. If we take a look, I'm just to take that cap off. Look, we've got this gorgeous blue nib to go with the rest of the body. It is such a nice pen to look at. The downside with it though, it's not as nice to actually use it. The nib, well, it's quite nice actually. It really is smooth when you're writing with it. You know, you're not dragging it. It's a nice hint of feedback coming through. I love the ink that I'm using with this. The ink here, let me just move it up so we can actually see it. It's this Robert Oster Australian Sky Blue. So it's a nice pale blue. The problem is the pen skips a lot, especially when I'm using it on nice quality paper. So if I use my cheap paper, I actually have no problems. So one of the things I do with this is I tend to use this when I'm using that cheaper paper. But when I'm using some nicer paper like Clairefontaine, Rhodia or my Tomoe River, it's just horrible. Let me just fetch this in. This is with that Tomoe River paper. You can see beautiful colour. It really is. Absolutely love the colour of this. It's just the skipping that I'm getting. Now, what I've been doing, every time I use this, I do slightly tweak at the nib. So I use my micro mesh on it. I use a little bit of coarser paper if I need to. I've checked the tines. I've had it under a loop. The tines are all aligned. It's just something about the nicer paper it just doesn't like. So this is one. I'm going to have to keep working on it because I do think I can eventually get it sorted. It's just I need to do that bit by bit, little tweaks, then trying it out for a while. So we will get there. But unfortunately, it means it's got to impact the score. And because it was skipping so much, I just cannot justify giving it anything but the bottom spot. So for this month, that HongDian Light of Hope comes in at position number 6. The next pen, it breaks my heart to do this. It really does. At position number 5, it goes to the Moonman M800 in this gorgeous blue colour. Now, if you've watched my channel for a while, you'll know that the Moonman M800 is one of my favourite pens. So why are you thinking, am I putting it at position number 5? It looks beautiful. Let me take this off. Look at that gorgeous nib. This is the Moonman nib. I did make a little bit of mistake when I was listing these out because I originally thought it was the Bock nib, but it's not. It's the Moonman. It's a fine nib and that's all they come in. You would not have any other choice with the Moonman M800 other than the fine nib. The ink in here is Noodlers Navajo Turquoise. Again, it's an ink that I really love the colour of. You know, so the combination of these, I really expected it to come out a lot higher. In terms of pen looks, well, the pen, I'm going to say it's inspired by the Leonardo Momento Zero. A lot of people say it's virtually a copy, but I'm going to be generous and will say it's inspired by. I love the look of the pen. In the hand, let me just take that cap off. This pen is really nice. I can post it if I want. Doesn't really make a difference to me if it's posted or not. I enjoy writing with it either way. It's a really gorgeous looking pen. So why am I marking it down? Similar to the previous one, I've had issues with the ink flow. What I find was happening, let me just take this off so we can actually look here. It's empty now. But there was ink in the converter, but I'd be getting nothing coming out of the nib. What I'd have to do, just flick it a couple of times, which would then loosen whatever ink was in there, and then it would flow down into the nib and write nicely. But it was a consistent issue I was having, which is such a shame, because I do love the Moonman M800 look. Now what I am going to do is I've bought a couple of replacement nibs. So I'm going to try replacing the nib on this before I next use it. So instead of having this fine, what it's going to have is a medium nib. And my hope is that that will fix the issue. So let me just fetch in that Tomoe River notepad, then we can look at some of the writing. You know, look at this. It's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, you get, and it's a nice fine line, so it's not overly thick. Get some gorgeous shading coming through when I'm writing with it. The issue is, as I say, it's that ink flow, and that's really what lets it down. I mean, if it had flowed all right, this would have been timed for position number 1, really would have. But I've got to mark it on what I was experiencing during the month. Which means, unfortunately, as much as it breaks my heart, and it really does, this comes in at position number 5. At position number 4, well, this month, it goes to this, which is the Penbbs 308. So this, it's a really nice, really vibrant blue colour. I love the silver accents on it because I think they really work well. They really fetch that blue out. It's a fairly translucent pen. I don't know if you can see here, so we can see right through it. Again, this is one, I've got no more ink left in it. I've written this one out already. The nib, you know, it's just that standard Penbbs nib. As I say, this one's a medium. You know, I quite like the Penbbs nibs. I very rarely have an issue with them. Just pop that back down. The ink that I've had in here is by Robert Oster, and it's Robert Oster Blue Water Ice. Again, I really like the colour of this ink. You can see already in here, there's a lot of shading in it. It's not an overly wet ink, so unlike where we had with the Navajo Turquoise, where even after a minute, it was still wet. You know, here, it dries off between 30 seconds and a minute. Really like this colour. It's a nice, vibrant blue. It's similar again to that turquoise. I think it is leaning towards that turquoisey colour. And that could be why I like it, because I have found that I do like turquoise colours. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. The other nice thing about this pen, let me just take this cap off again. Take the section off this time. As I say, at the moment, I've got a converter in here. But looking at this, it's all plastic. I can't see any holes in here, so I believe I could even eyedropper this. An eyedropper, I think this would last for a long time. You know, they've put an O-ring in there, which is going to really help with that. So, in terms of the pen itself, everything looks really nice. But I have had issues again. One of the things I'm finding, it's very thin. So again, if we look here, you can see how thin it is and how my fingers are getting closer, and they're really digging into that bottom there, and that lip is really noticeable. The pen isn't overly long, so it works best posted. That gives it the length that you need to write with. You know, posting is not too bad. So I had to mark it down there because after I'd written a page or so, you know, it would start making my hand ache a little bit. Again, I've had issues with the ink flow. With this one, the ink seemed to stick to the sides and the top of the converter. Once I flicked it, so that loosened it, it got down into the section and it wrote brilliantly. I had some issues with a little bit of skipping, but I think that was down to the fact there was no ink getting into the section because it was all sticking in the converter. So I'm going to give the converter on this a really good clean in case there's something in that converter which is causing the issue. I'm also going to try a different ink just in case it was the ink that was sticking. When I'm writing with it though, it's nice and smooth. Let me just fetch in my notepad again. So here we have the Penbbs 308. You know, it's really nice. As you know, you can see from my notes here, these are notes I take as I'm using the pen. I really enjoyed it. Again, it's a nice combination. It's just that issues with that ink starvation, with it sticking to the converter, that has to let it down. It writes really smooth. Again, there's a little tiny bit of feedback. I would have actually liked a bit more feedback on this nib, but that's something I can introduce. Had some skips, but again, as I've already said, I think they were due to that ink issue. But all in all, I have to again mark it on what I experienced. So that's what brought that down to position number 4. Position number 3 goes to the Jinhao 992. Now, at the start of the month, I thought this pen would have come in, you know, maybe at 5 or 6. This pen cost me a whopping $1.71. It is the cheapest fountain pen I own. So I really wasn't expecting much from it. The pen itself, it's really small. Let me just take the cap off. Just look at that, it hardly fits in my hand. this has to be used posted. Posted, it's actually not too bad. It fits quite nicely in my hand. It's not back weighted at all. The nib, yeah, it's a fairly small nib. But for what I paid for it, I wasn't expecting a massive nib really. The pen, it's this gorgeous, really pale blue translucent colour. I'm just going to take this off. There's still ink left in it. You know, this pen just goes on and on and on. If I look at the body and look here, it's all plastic fittings. And again, there's a little O-ring at the bottom. This is another one. I really do think this is one I could eyedropper if I wanted. But why would I want to do that? The ink in this just seems to really last. Now it could be because it's got that really fine nib, but I don't really care too much because I'm enjoying using it. Because of the size though, it's similar really to that HongDian. It hurts my hand if I write for it for too long. After I've written about half to 3/4 of a page, it really does start to make my hand ache. So for long writing sessions, yeah, it's definitely not a pen for me. The ink in here, Diamine Royal Blue. What a gorgeous colour. Really is. Now, I was expecting this colour, to be honest, I was expecting it to be darker, because to me, Royal Blue, it's that darker shade. But I was pleasantly surprised when I saw this. I really do like the colour of the ink. Can't really say that enough, really. Let me fetch in the pad. We can take a look at this. So here we go. So the Jinhao 992. You know, as I've said here, it's small and light. Love that ink colour. Mentioned about the lightness of a pen, so everything I've really told you, you know, I build up my script for this by looking through these notes that I take. I find it's a nice way to, you know, as I test the pen, to really be able to put down my thoughts. But yeah, it's really nice. But the thing that lets it down, I can't use it for long periods of time. And that's why I've had to mark it down. So for this month, that comes in at position number 3. So what does that mean? That means we've got 2 pens left. We've got the Leonardo or we've got the Jinhao 159. So which one is going to come in at position number 2? Well, for this month, it's the Jinhao 159. I really enjoyed using this pen. It feels really nice in my hand. So if I show you there, because it's a wide pen, it sits really nice between my fingers. If I post it, it does sort of post, but it's very, very loose. Now, one of the issues I've got, unposted, well, it feels that's slightly a little bit too short for me. But posted, I've got to be really careful. If I push it down, it will sit there, but I've got to really push it on. But when I've done that, it writes and feels not too bad. A little bit back heavy, but that doesn't matter. It's not too bad that it would stop me from writing with it. This is another one where the ink ran out really, really quick. It's a medium nib. I have filled this once already this month, and you can see how much I like it because I've run out again. You know, I really have enjoyed using this. It's got some really nice ink flow. I haven't had any issues with it skipping or hard starts. If we look at the colour, let me just move that up there where you can see it a bit better. The colour of this, it's unusual to say the least. You know, it's heading towards more like a paley greeny shade of blue. I'd still say this is in that blue family, but this Lamy Crystal Amazonite, really like the colour of the ink. Not 100% a match for the body, but close enough for me. Enjoyed using it, really have. And if it wasn't for the fact it was so short, that's just the really thing which has prevented me from using it more. So this means this comes in at position number 2. Which means by default, let me fetch this down so we can actually see the entry for it. At position number 1 for this month is the Leonardo Momento Zero Grande. Now, remember, this is the most expensive pen I currently own, so I would expect it to be really high. This pen looks absolutely gorgeous, really does. I absolutely love the pen. Its looks are really nice. I'm just going to fetch in the Moonman M800. Now, this is a smaller version than the Grande, obviously, but you can see they're virtually identical in the design. Very few differences between them. Let's take a quick look at the nib on this. So this is that gorgeous, I'm going to mispronounce this most probably, Joe nib. Absolutely love this. You know, it's got that silver colour. It's a steel nib, but absolutely gorgeous pen. And, you know, let's take a quick spin around it. Just look at that gorgeous colouring. Now this pen is a piston filler. All the other ones were cartridge fillers. It takes an awful lot of ink. It takes about 2 mils of ink, I believe. One fill of this normally lasts me between 6 and 8 weeks. Now at the start of the month, I had Diamine Saragasso C. You'll see I've had to cross out what I'd written. I don't know why, but I got myself convinced for weeks since I bought this ink that it was called Saragasso C, but it's not. It's Sargasso. So thank you to the person that pointed it out to me. I have corrected it on here, as you can see. I know it makes it look scruffy, doesn't it? After the first week, it ran out. So what I did is I took the opportunity and I changed that then to have Diamine Ordinil. This is a really weird colour. It's blue, but it's got like a lot of, I would say, yellow in it as well. So it reminds me of looking into more of like a river type water, where it's got a shallow river, so you're actually seeing through, and you've got the blue of the water, but you've got that sandy type underlay to it. Best way I can really describe it. It's quite an unusual colour. In terms of writing, don't need to post this, just look at that, it fits gorgeously in my hand. It's not too narrow, it's not too wide, not overly heavy. For me, this is virtually the perfect pen. It meets everything I want. So whilst I was writing with this, let me fetch in my Tomoe River again. So here, this is the ink that I had in at the start of the month. This is that Leonardo Momento Zero Grande with Diamine Sargasso C. You can ignore that, that's again from a few weeks ago. But look at that, it looks really nice on here. Not seeing overly much in the way of shading, but I'm not really worried about that. I mean, this is a medium nib on there. I would have liked to have seen a bit of shading come through. I'm just going to skip, and this page here, this is same pen, but with that Diamine Ordinil. I'm hoping this will come through over the camera, just how unusual I think this ink colour is. I mean, as I've described it here, the ink colour is a bit weird. Got blue and green hint. It's got blue and green hints to it. I like the colour of this ink. Again, there's slight bits of shading coming through. I'd like to have seen more, but that's fine. But yeah, it's a nice pen. It's a nice ink. This is one I felt myself easily reaching for every day. It was one of those where between that and the Jinhao 159, to be honest, I could have gone the whole month with just the two of them because they were both so enjoyable. But we've got to rank them. So this one comes in position number 1. So we've spoken now about the pens. I'm just going to briefly touch on the inks. So this month, the whole idea was I was to be using blue inks because one of the things I'm trying to do is explore different things and different aspects of the fountain pen hobby. Now, most of the time I'm changing pens, I'm trying different papers, but I'm not really comparing the inks. Now, I know this isn't exactly scientific because if I was doing this properly, I would use the same ink in all the pens. Then after a week, I would change it. But that to me is boring. So yes, I've had different inks in different pens. So it's not exactly perfect because different pens do alter the way the ink comes out of them. So let's look at the ones that I've enjoyed this month. At position number 7, I'm going to put the Australian Sky Blue. That's the one that was in the Light of Hope. It's a nice colour, but for me, it was just that bit too pale. I can see this being one though that I would buy a full bottle at the moment. I'm running off a sample. I'd like to see this more in a medium nib, and I think in a medium or a broad nib, it would look so much nicer. At position number 6, I'm going to put that Sargasso C by Diamine. It's a nice colour, but it's just a bit too dark. You know, I'm being really picky, aren't I? I'm going from too light to too dark. Still enjoyed it though, and it's still one that I'm glad I have a bottle of. Position number 5, the Noodler Navajo Turquoise. This ink is very wet. That's one of the reasons why I'm having to knock it down a bit. Because if I want to do multiple pages, I have to wait for one to dry or I have to use blotting paper, which I try to avoid doing. So it's just that little bit too wet. At position 4 in terms of inks is the Robert Oster Blue Water Ice. Very nice tones, very nice shading. Really liked this. It had that medium nib from the Penbbs. Was nice. Position number 4, that's right in the middle, so it's not to be ashamed of. Position 3 is the Lamy Crystal Amazonite. Again, it's a slightly unusual colour. It's a bit like the Ordinil, but to me this is that bit of a more green colour. It's maybe heading towards that tealy side of blue. But again, it's a nice one. I think this would look really nice in a broad nib. Position number 2, That goes to Diamine Royal Blue. I was so surprised when I saw this colour. Really was. Really liked it. It's not too bright. It's very reminiscent of what I would call the school blue. You know, I'm going back to when I was at school, which is more than a couple of years ago. And the ink that we had there was Parker Blue. And this very much makes me think of that, but I'm looking at that through the filters of memory, not by having some writing from that time to compare. So I can't 100% say it's the same. That means that position number 1 for my inks was this Diamine Eau de Nil. I'm really taken by this. I really am. Now I've got the small bottle of Diamine Eau de Nil, and I think this is one I'll end up buying the bigger bottle because it's so unusual. Now somebody did say that it stands for Water of the Nile. Now I'm not sure. I'm not really a French speaker. The way I look at it is water of nothing, because going from nil, my programming background, nil is nothing. But yeah, I don't really know how to describe this thing. It's just so nice. Now I'm going to clear this all off, and then we'll fetch the pens in for one final look. So making its first appearance in this video is my brand new pen tray. At position number 6 for this month, it was the HongDian, the Light of Hope. Position 5, the Moonman M800 in blue with the Moonman nib. Position 4, the Penbbs 308. Number 3 was the Penbbs 992. At number 2, and let's hope this fits, is the Jinhao 159. Wow, that's a bit of a tight fit there, isn't it? But this month's winner is this one, you know, my Leonardo Momento Zero Grande. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Do you have any of these pens and inks? What do you think about them? What ranking would you give them? Please drop a comment down below. I'd love to know your thoughts on them. Please hit that thumbs up button. The more people that like and comment on the video, well, it just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.